Humanity, I love you all with all my heart, with all my might. I'm so Ray. My videos are about love, infinity, creation, because we're infinite love, infinite energy, infinite creation. This is who we are. We are the human species. We're a remarkable species. This is who we are. And I'm making a series of videos, and this is part of it. It's about infinite virtuous cycles. Okay, so this infinite virtuous cycle is questions and answers. You see? So when these two come together as one in this infinite virtuous cycle, then what do we get? Well, we get results. We get the most incredible answers. When a question has the right intention, it meets its opposite. It meets its polarity. Remember, because a virtuous cycle is infinite in nature because it's polarity. It's polarity. Right? And polarity has charge. And when this charge comes together, it generates an electromagnetic field. And this electromagnetic field is spherical in nature because all electromagnetic fields are spherical in nature. Because everything that exists, that is conscious and self-aware, is spherical in nature because it's energy. And energy is spherical in nature. So you need two, right, to create the polarity. So what's this polarity? Well, this polarity is an infinite number of answers. And these answers are the results, the states, the end states, which are it's knowledge, it's wisdom, right? It's value, it's knowledge, right? The Greek calls it nous. Is this nous, this knowledge, wisdom, understanding of everything. That's where consciousness comes from, to knowing, cons, with owns. This owns, this knows, this infinite idea that the Greek understood of wisdom. What is understanding, right? Comprehension of what it really is, the things that really exist, facts. We know that as objective reality. We know that as truth. And my book has to do a lot with truth and objective reality because I'm answering questions that are infinite in nature. So the previous and all virtuous cycles have this because they're virtuous in nature, because they're polarity. You see, they're duality principles, they charge, and that leads to electromagnetism, that leads to a singularity in the epicenter, that leads to an electromagnetic field, that leads to electrogravitics, telemetry. You see, the telemetry is the readings of the electrogravitics, the energy that is released from the gravity, which is the tension on the surface of the electromagnetic field. And when we tap that energy with singularity, then we get the readings of that energy source, which is infinite in nature. So it's infinite knowledge. It's infinite wisdom. You see, questions and answers. It leads to this virtuous infinite cycle of knowledge, of wisdom, of understanding, knows, as is known in Greek. So the Greek gave us so much. They gave us the sphere. They gave us the understanding that we were the epicenter of the universe. They knew. So because they understood infinity, they were obsessed with infinity. They gave us the republic, they gave us democracy, they gave us freedom. The Greek have given us so much, right? They were incredible because they were us. They were smarter than us. They were more ancient than us. So they came from closer to truth because there were events that took place here on the surface. And that led to us forgetting who we are, our nature. And this is precisely why I'm making this video, because this is an infinite virtuous cycle of knowing our nature, because it's these two parts that come as one, as a whole. It's generating this infinite virtuous cycle, this singularity at the epicenter, which is knowledge, wisdom, truth, objective reality. So by understanding these, then we understand our nature as a species. And it starts with questions, and questions lead to answers. You see, questions and answers. So this is an infinite virtuous cycle. Infinite virtuous cycle, questions and answers. You see, because the end state of that is knowledge, is results, is truth, is objective reality. It's infinity. Everything that there is and there would always be, and we are the biological expression of it. Because we're the human species, this is who we are. Okay, so you see, I've been making a lot of infinite virtuous cycle videos. Why? Because these are principles of reality of existence as we understand it, because we're consciousness and self-awareness. You see, virtuous cycles are the building blocks of reality as we know it because of duality principles. You see, proto-meta systems and the properties analysis of those proto-meta systems, telemetric thinking, which is the telemetry of the sphere, right? Spherical ideas, which are infinite in nature. And these questions, they all tend to be infinite because there's an infinite number of questions because everything is infinite in nature. So you see, why is this mechanism? And the previous video was infinite virtual cycle of why centric and why minded. So when why becomes the center of your life, your epicenter, which is everything, because it should be like that, because infinity is everything. So why is infinity? Is the word, the term that we have designed in English as a technology that allows our brains to process symbology and meaning, encoded and decoded in the way of infinite terms. Because why is that? Why is infinite in nature, right? Why is precisely that? Is the root cause, is the because, is the reason, is the why, right? Is the origin, is the genesis, is the beginning, is the zero. Zero equals infinity. Infinity equals zero, because the zero is a sphere. And there's a polarity. And I have provided the mathematical proof to this. I have, built on the shoulders of giants, Archimedes, Euclid, Plato, all these greats, the real mathematicians, the ones that gave us the knowledge that we have, the republic, democracy, freedom, gave us the understanding that our planet is the epicenter of the universe, the center of the universe, because it is. They gave us so much. They gave us pi, the prime mover, infinity itself, singularity, which is the sphere. You see, the Greek were incredible, right? They were amazing. So they were amazing, and they still are, because they still exist in all of us, because their ideas are DNA, just like us, and their memories are stored within our DNA structure. So the ancient Greek are with us. In fact, they never been more relevant because of who we are, because of our nature, because our DNA and who we are. So you see, the Greek are the most important of them ancients, because they were the ones that gave us the meanings that allow us to get to this moment so we can found the Republic of Planet Earth and we can understand nature for what it is. So I was able not only to draft the Constitution of the Republic of Planet Earth for the whole of humanity, but also I was able to provide humanity the mathematical proof of infinity, because infinity is everything and infinity equals zero. And I have provided the mathematics because it's the polarity of zero, it's the charge of zero. And it's easy. It's easy to understand. It's easy to comprehend. It's very simple math, because the math of zero is the simplest math, because it's the beginning of everything. Everything comes out of zero, comes out of infinity. So because infinity is zero, infinity equals zero. And we are energy, so it has to be the polarity and the energy of zero, right? And zero is the number that begins it all, right? It's the first number. It represents the sphere, which is polarity. So you see, it applies to all scales, because if you think of our scale, we are ourselves polarity. We're the electromagnetic field, the human heartbeat, the pulse of life, the pulse of creation, the polarity of the electromagnetic field. The contraction and the retraction leads to the electromagnetism, and the heart is what's called the heart, because it's the epicenter of the electromagnetic field. And the highest energy of the heart is love, who we are. You see, and the sun is the epicenter of the universe. Our sun, the Greek were pretty much very right. They knew this because they understood infinity. You see, they understood and they were obsessed with infinity anyway. So that's why they knew, because they understood who we were and our role in the universe, because we are the species inhabiting the central planet. We are the species inhabiting the central planet. Why central planet? Planet Earth, because we are in the orbit of the central sun of the universe, the singularity of the universe. This is who we are. This is where we're located. So this is actually who we are. So we are the most ancient species. We're the first species, because everything came out of us, because everything was created after we were created, because we were the first, because we were the epicenter of creation. You see? So and the Greek are much more than what meets the eye. what you see in what's known as mainstream history is but an obfuscation of who the Greek are. The Greek were much more than that. The Greek were an infinite species, just like us. It's the same species, but their civilization was an infinite civilization. There's a lot of misunderstanding of who the Greek were because it was such a long time ago, and there was self-destruction, and there were all sorts of warfare that led to the demise of that civilization, that it really obfuscated who the Greek were. But the Greek were much more technologically advanced than we are today because they understood infinity, and they had access to infinite technology and infinite energy because they knew who we were as a species, right? They were the descendants of the survivors of the fallout of the Ice Age, this problem that took place, and the moon is the reason why there was a fallout in the first place, and we forgot who we are because of this ancient warfare that took place as a result of the moon coming here, and because the moon is a spaceship that is tidal locked to planet Earth. It's an invading force. So it's an oppressive force. Everything that the moon is and everyone who represents the moon, they're oppressive entities, agents of the moon and what the moon is, right? Because the moon wasn't there before the Ice Age. The moon showed up and caused these horrible events that took place on the surface of planet Earth that led to the destruction of our civilizations, our knowledge as a history. And that led to us forgetting who we are and our DNA going dormant. But traces of that knowledge survived. You see questions and answers. The wisdom of the Greeks survived. And we were able to save, our DNA was able to save enough of that history of the ancient Greek, who they were, what they've done, right? What they've done for us, providing us with the sphere, with pi, with infinity itself, the knowledge that we're the center of the universe, democracy, freedom, and the republic. All these concepts that were the concepts that we essentially are, because today the Republic of Planet Earth, who we are, is just a modern version of what we used to be, but after what happened as a result of the fallout of the Ice Age. Okay? So, and how do I know all these things? Because of questions and answers. Because of all this infinite virtuous cycle, right? All the infinite virtuous cycles that there are. Because if something is virtuous, it's infinite in nature. Because its mechanisms are reinforcing to infinity and leads to singularities. And this is an extremely powerful infinite virtuous cycle because it's questions and answers. It's the right questions. When you ask the right questions, you get the right answers. You see, it was the Greek who said that you ought to judge a man or a human for the quality of the questions they ask. It was Socrates who said that. Socrates said that you judge the heart of a man or a human by the quality of the questions they ask. And this is what the Socratic method is. He was a Greek. You see? So what is the meaning of this? Well, it's the quality of the question that leads to the quality of the answer, right? Quality leads to more quality. It's a reinforcing mechanism of its own. You see? So it's the quality of the question that leads to the quality of the answer. So you got to understand this because this is just the way it is. It's an infinite virtuous cycle. It's a principle of infinity, duality principles, okay? When you go against our own nature, then you are working against yourself, right? Because you need to understand our nature, and our nature is infinity because we're the infinite biology of infinity. We're the biological expression of infinity. Our DNA contains everything that there is in existence. Because we are the biology of infinity. We're the consciousness and self-awareness of infinity itself. Because we are the epicenter of the central sun. The central sun of the universe is our sun, the singularity that created all light came out of it. And we're the biological species that orbits that central sun. So we have evolved into that because the energy of the central sun is absorbed by our organism, the way of the sunlight that comes straight into our eyes, because our eyes, see, the sun is right there. The eyes are biologically designed by DNA or evolution to stare at the sun, so we can get that sunlight, all these gamma rays and everything that is beyond the light spectrum, because it's infinite frequencies of creation, and they supercharge our DNA and allows us to wake up, to awaken, because we've been dormant for so long as a result of the warfare that the moon and their agents brought here to planet Earth, obfuscating truth and obfuscating our nature as a result, creating densities that are against the nature of who we are as a species. You see, all this moon-centric behavior is the opposite of human nature, because our nature is the sun, because the sun created us. So everything that supports the moon and is moon-centric is the opposite of our nature. Okay? So the moon represents slavery. The moon represents the destruction of who we are as a species. Obfuscation is the opposite. It led to the Ice Age as a result of the warfare that it brought here. Right? So understand this, because this is fundamental. And the Greek knew this. The Greek knew this. So because they were the descendants of the humans that survived the Ice Age and everything that happened as a result of this warfare. So they were able to, as a species, have enough knowledge for us to have the foundations of the civilization that we are today, thanks to the Greek, because of what they did, because of their DNA structures, which is the same as ours. So they were able to salvage enough of our species so we can understand these basic concepts that are the building blocks of who we are as a species. That is what allowed us to unlock the DNA structure. And by unlocking the DNA structure of our species, we understood immediately, because the DNA memories, who we are. And we are the epicenter of everything, because we are the most ancient species. We're the human race. Our DNA is the DNA of infinity. This is who we are. The electromagnetic field of the human heart is the image of the Creator. And the Creator is infinity itself. And the way we see it is as the singularity of the central sun of the universe, which is our sun right there. That's why we're infinity ourselves, because we're the closest to the energy of creation. And we're the biology that evolved within that habitat, that ecosystem, because of our density structure. We're at the brightest point that there is in everything that exists. You know, what is known as the Milky Way. And who named the Milky Way? The Greek. The term Milky Way comes from Greek. It was the Greek that knew who we were. They knew our location, right? And they developed this civilization as a defense against all these negative forces surrounding them that were all moon-centric, which were the invaders that came from the moon trying to, do these horrible things that we all know of, right? So the vestiges of our civilization, the Ice Age, destroyed led to all those ruins. It led to all those ruins, right? All the ruins of our civilization in all the continents are the result of this warfare that originated as a result of the moon coming here and tidal locking to planet Earth and creating all the cataclysmic events that led to the Ice Age and the fallout that originated in us going dormant as a species. And all this myth and all this nonsense was started to be introduced as concepts in the psyche of humans to confuse them with fantasies and illusions. And all this led to us forgetting who we were, the center of everything that exists, the most ancient species in the universe. Because think about it, our human heart, see, we are the image of the Creator, and the Creator is infinity, and the singularity of infinity at the universal scale is the central sun, which is our sun. Why? Because the universe is spherical in nature. Everything that is alive, conscious and self-aware, is energy. And energy is spherical in nature because of polarity, electromagnetism. So the universe, the electromagnetic field of the universe, the surface of that is the space of the universe, right? And the space structure is within it, right? But that energy needs a singularity, a release point, so the energy is stable, so it doesn't collapse, so the universe doesn't implode, like you would see a bubble imploding. If in the air, if you see a bubble, it's created, but then once it starts to interact with pressure, it bursts because it doesn't have a structure within it holding it tight, because it doesn't have energy. But an electromagnetic field is just like a bubble, but it's stable because it has a singularity at the epicenter, because the singularity is the singular point where all points meet. That's what the singularity is. It's a singular point where all points meet, right? That's what the singularity is. So if you understand this, then that means because there is an infinite number of points on the surface of the sphere. And how do we know this? Because the sphere is infinite in nature. It's endless, it's boundless, it's eternal, it's forever, it's limitless. So there is an infinite number of coordinates, points, vectors, nodes on the surface of the sphere. And energy is creation, so spherical energy, electromagnetism, moves because of polarity and charge, right? Because the sphere has axes that lead to polarity, and this charge leads to electromagnetism. So because of the electromagnetism, it moves that energy, and that energy needs to be released, so the structure is stable, right? The density of it sustains itself. Space structure of the surface, the space contained within the surface of the sphere. So the way that does, because is torsion, is movement, is energy, polarity, moves like this, and it moves like this. So it's both. And I proved the mathematics of it in my equations. The mathematical proof of zero equaling infinity. Infinity equals zero because of the charge and the polarity of zero. Okay, but zero is the equivalent of a sphere, right? It's a circle for a reason. Because a circle, and everything is spherical. It's just the way it is. So it's just the way it is. It's facts. It's just knowledge, right? It's just the fact. It's what it is. It's like we are humans. Well, infinity equals zero. As simple as that. So, and I have provided the proof. So it's just that. So understanding this idea, coming to terms with it, that matters. So you understand who you are, because you are yourself zero, because you are spherical. You have an electromagnetic field. So you are infinite in nature just by being spherical. Okay. So because the biological creation, us, is spherical in nature because of our electromagnetic field, the human heartbeat, the pulse of life, the pulse of creation, that generates the polarity, the charge, contraction, retraction, it generates electromagnetic field, and the space structure density of it is us, our consciousness of awareness, our bodies, our organs. That's why when the heart is at the core, that's why the heart is called a heart, because the heart is the core, it's the epicenter, it's the center, it's the middle of what? The electromagnetic field, the sphere. So this is who we are. Okay, this is the species that we are. Okay, so essentially what this means is that we are the image of the creator, because creators create creations and creations create creators, meaning the creation itself becomes conscious and self-aware, so it becomes a creator. You see, it's the scales of creation. So we're the biological scale of infinity. Why? Because the energy of infinity is a singularity. That is the central sun that creates everything in the universe, right? All the galaxies, all the life forms, us. Because you need all these infinite number of points on the surface of the electromagnetic field moving, and then they meet at the vortex. So they go down the vortex, and at the epicenter, that's the singularity, and all the points meet. So it's an infinite number of points, so it's infinite number of energy, because it's energy, it's moving, it's no motion, and it's infinite energy then, and it's electromagnetic, it's electrogravitics, it's telemetry, right? That's what it is. So, and that energy is what we call light. And we see it because our sun is the one at the epicenter of everything that there is in this universe. So we happen to be the image of that because our light spherical energy is our electromagnetic field. So you see, so we are the image of that. So what is that? Well, so how do we know who we are? Because of our DNA. Our DNA created us, our biology. So our biology is the DNA, and our DNA is infinite because all the energy of creation come straight into our body. So we're supercharging our cells, which are created by the DNA, with the energy of infinity, which means everything is contained with our DNA. That's why we are spherical in nature, because we're infinite in nature ourselves, our spherical energy. That's why we have spherical eyes, so we can stare at the sun, spherical, and we get that light, because light is creation, so we get that light through our eyes and supercharge our bodies. So we awaken, because the energy of the sun awakens us. You see, the gamma rays of the sun that heat our cell structure, so our energy supercharges our heart. So our heart now can pulse at a higher rate. And that frequency is love, is the highest energy of creation. So when you love with the energy of your heart, which is the highest energy, it's just like the epicenter of the sun. It's the brightest point, the hottest point. So the energy and the light is created, and the elements, right? Because it's the point where all points meet. So it's infinite energy points meeting there, so that leads to infinite energy as a result, because it's the output, right? Questions, answers. So that's it. And that energy comes into our bodies through the way of the iris, by staring at the sun. And that's gamma rays, gamma energy. And that gamma energy comes into our bodies, an infinite amount of energy, but gamma is kind of the main one, because gamma is the one that interacts with our biology, because we're plasma. And plasma is a frequency energy. It's energy. Plasma energy is the energy state that essentially is a binder. So it allows all states to happen for elements. And we are elements in a way, because of water in us and all that. We see oxygen, all that, right? So what happens is that when you see water, it moves into states, right? Gaseous, liquid, and solid. So what is the energy that binds it into those states? Was it the temperature, the pressure gradient, the temperature differential, the electrogravity differential that creates the effect, so things cool down or heat up? It's plasma energy. And plasma energy operates within the bandwidths, right, within the wavelengths of the frequency and the vibration of gamma spectrum energy, the spectra of gamma. So you see, and there's plasma everywhere in our bodies, right? This is very basic. Any encyclopedia would tell you that. So even ancient encyclopedias, 100-year-old encyclopedias, will know what plasma was. So you see, plasma is everywhere in our bodies. So when we get the energy from the sun, right, gamma energy, and we love with it more, and then we starting to love with energy of gamma now, and that opens up the key of our DNA, which is the plasma everywhere in the body. So it unlocks everything, because it's a binder. What is it binding? Where it's binding our infinity. Our infinity becomes conscious. So that means our DNA is not dormant anymore. So we awake. We are awakened as a result. We have awoken as a species, right? We are awake, right? This is who we have risen once more. We understand our nature, and we know our role, because we're the most ancient species in the universe, which means we're the most technologically advanced and all that. And everything is encoded in our DNA, because we're the infinity, the DNA of infinity. We're the consciousness and self-awareness of infinity. This is who we are as a species. And how do we know this? Because of questions and answers. Because you ask questions, and you have to ask infinite questions, because infinity is why, at the language level, consciousness and self-awareness, the processing of our brains, coding and encoding. Why is that mechanism? Why? And why, how is this method, this device that I created myself, by asking why? So infinity itself gave me the answer. The polarity of why is how. The dual, and I have made this infinite virtuous cycle video of why and how, and the infinite cycle of what that means. This self-reinforcement, because why is infinity itself, is the root cause, is the reason, is the why, is the because, is the origin, is the genesis, is the beginning, is zero, right? It's what starts everything. It's the polarity of infinity itself, right? And consciousness and self-awareness understands this term, this concept, this word, these letters as a way of why. And then when we ask why, you go to infinity, because it's what it does. It's the root cause, it's the origin of everything. But you need to enable infinity, right? Once you understand infinity, you need to understand the principles of it and understand how it works, so you're conscious and aware, so you can apply it, so you can use the electrogravitics of the electromagnetic field of polarity itself, and leads to telemetry, because it's telemetry that allows you to read the electrogravitics that you're generating, this energy, this singularity energy. And with that is when you master something. You master something when you can read it. And what's reading? Well, reading is knowledge, right? Then again, questions and answers leads to knowledge. Knows, right? This Greek term. spherical thinking, spherical knowledge. So when you understand these for what it is, which is infinity, which is us, then you start to understand that in order for you to understand, you need to know how to read, right? So you know the meaning of things, knowledge, wisdom. So the knowledge of wisdom of infinity is stored in our DNA memory. And in order for us to access our infinite DNA memory of infinity and everything that there is, we need to understand the language of it. And the language of it in our conscious mind is why, how. That's the language of it. Because why is infinity and how is how you go about infinity. So you manifest infinity. You see, it's why, how is this mechanism in our brains that we have devised, I have created. As I have created the formulas of polarity of zero and all this. Why? Because I started asking why when I was very young. So I became why-centric and why-minded. I became one with infinity. Why? Because our biology allows us to do that. We went dormant, so we didn't know. We're not taught these things at school, are we? Why? Obvious, right? Obvious. Why? It's obvious, right? Once you start to understand what the moon is and what the moon represents and all the moon worshippers out there, right? So that's why, right? Because of what happened in the past. This wasn't an accident. This was purposefully done to our species, right? By this force that came outside and did what it did, right? So, but because in my instincts, you see, I was following my heart, my instincts as a species, right? So I was following my instincts as a species. And the instincts were telling me, ask why. You see, so I started asking why. So by asking why, I ended up realizing that we ourselves are infinity. We are the DNA of infinity, and I started to put everything together because the knowledge is outside of us and within us. Because remember, we are the biology of infinity. Why? Because we're the planet at the epicenter of the universe. This is the planet that we are, right? So we're the biology inhabiting the central sun of everything that is created. So we are the biological expression of that, because remember, energy is everything that's conscious self-aware, because it needs to exist to be energy. Energy creates. So if it exists, it has an energy charge to it, polarity, because energy is spherical in nature. And I have provided the mathematical proof to that. And if you really want to see it, just stare at the sun. It's spherical energy, all right? And it creates everything. Simple as that. Or just read about electromagnetic field of the body and you will know that it's spherical in nature. So you see, this is who we are as a species. This is our nature. But this is not taught to us at school or in any of these institutions for obvious reasons, right? Common sense, right? Common sense, right? It's against our nature. And remember, everything that goes against our nature is not human. So understand this, right? So if it's not human, does it want the best for humans? If it's a system that is not human, goes against our instincts, it's moon-centric, outside us, right? So understand this. It's common sense. So my instincts, our DNA, started to say, just ask why. It was my instinct, ask why. So I became why-centric, why-minded. So that was what eventually allowed me to understand all these principles, that we're infinite energy, that infinity equals zero, that we're the biology of infinity because of our DNA is infinite. Why? Because all the energy on the tension of the electromagnetic field, right? All the energy on the tension of the electromagnetic field is an infinite number of points on the surface of it. But it's energy, it's polarity. So that energy is released in the way of what? The vortex at the epicenter, which is the singularity. So the structure of the universe is stable. And that is a singularity. And it has all the energy because all these points are telemetric in nature. They themselves are pulses. They themselves are nodes. You see, they have a pulse. That is the energy in the first place. So that electromagnetic field, that energy is released, right? So the structure is stable. So it has a singularity. And the singularity of the universe, the electromagnetic field of the universe, is the space, or we call it space curvature, the gravity of the universe, right? The sphere, right? That energy gets released through a vortex, a wormhole, and the epicenter is a singularity, because singularity is the singular point where all points meet, the central point. And because it's an infinite number of points of energy, consciousness, self-awareness, love, life forms, galaxies, planets within galaxies, species, civilizations, their pulse of life, their pulse of creation, everything that there is, all that energy gets fed back into the central point, which is the singularity, the central sun that creates everything in the first place. The singularity, just like our heart creates everything at the biological scale, the central sun creates everything. It's the center, it's the epicenter of the universe, and the universe is spherical because it's energy. Okay? So we are the biology inhabiting the central sun, the first sun, the son of sun, sun. That's why we're sun. And this is why all these myths about sun. Because who created those myths? Moon worshippers. Because they knew who we are. They knew that we are sons ourselves. We're the sons of suns. We're the sons. We're the first sun, the son of suns. Our species is the epicenter of everything. And if you understand these myths, who was sun? Was this Heracles, right? Hercules, infinite energy of the sun, right? Infinite power, right? Infinite power, right? So these myths are based on what? Our DNA structure, right? Very basic. Very basic. And listen to the background noise. You hear that? I started talking about this and then noise showed up, right? What do you think that noise is? Moon worshippers, right? Dogma. So then again, so if you understand these, right? If you understand these, we know that we're suns ourselves. We're infinite energy. See? We're mighty. Why? Because we are the biology of infinity ourselves as a species. This is who we are. We're the biology of infinity ourselves. Because all the points, right? The electromagnetic field, right? The electromagnetic field, right? The electromagnetic field, right? Is everything that there is of the universe. And that have an infinite number of points. And those are energy points that are being channeled through the vortex to the singularity, which is our central sun, which is the point where all the energy, all the light comes from, and it creates all the galaxies, all the life forms. All these moon worshippers, they're also part of that. Everything was created by that energy of creation, right? Everything. But we are special because we are the biology at the epicenter of that energy. So what does that make us? Because biology is DNA. So if we are created in the image of the creator, which is the central sun that creates everything, right? We're the biology of that. We have an electromagnetic field that's spherical in nature because of a human heart, right? Correct? So then again, our biology is that. It's infinity. So all that energy, remember, all the points meet there. The singular point where all points meet. Right? So what is the meaning of this? Well, all this energy, right? All this energy, the central point, right? The singular point where all points meet. Right? So the sun is releasing that infinite energy because it's an infinite number of points of energy. So obviously it leads to infinite energy being released. So this structure is stable within the sphere, the electromagnetic field of the universe. And we're the species there, so we are consuming that energy. We stare at the sun, right? We stare at the sun, right? And why is it not taught at school? Why are we not taught, hey, you gotta stare at the sun? Common sense, right? Because of moon worshippers not wanting us to know what the sun is and who we are. Because when we stare at the sun, we awake. We wake up as a species. So because we wake up as a species, then it's game over, innit? So that's just the way it is. It's all lies, fantasies, and illusions. Right? Lies, misinformation, disinformation. At institutional levels, lying to humanity about our nature, who we are, our species. Right? And this has been happening for a long time. So remember, when the Greek were surrounded by all these barbarians, right? All these invaders, right? Who do you think those were? All moon worshippers, right? Moon worshippers, right? Because the Greek were the civilization defending our heritage, our DNA, the survivors of this warfare that these moon worshippers brought here to planet Earth, right? Because they came on those spaceships tied a lock to planet Earth. I'm gonna get there. So, okay, so let's talk about it. So then again, so when we stare at the sun, that infinite energy comes into our bodies and supercharges our cells, and our cells are made out of DNA, right? Our cells are made out of DNA, right? That's what our cells are made of. Our cells are made out of DNA. So what's DNA? Well, DNA is the energy that created us, right? So we have an electromagnetic field, consciousness and self-awareness or biology. So when we consuming this energy to our sun, you see gamma rays and all that, gamma energy, plasma energy, who we are as a species, and love is the highest energy of creation. So that means that everything is contained within our DNA, because all the energy from all the points is released by the singularity at the epicenter. So everything, all the information in data sets is contained within the energy released from the sun. And we are the species consuming that energy, meaning that our DNA contains everything that there is because it stores everything that exists. That's why I was able to ask why and get consciousness and self-awareness of infinity. And because of that, it led me to the instinct of staring at the sun. You see, because I unlocked the DNA of our species, because it was dormant, because it's like PTSD, right? When you have a big trauma, a big event, you forget, right? You have memory loss, right? And what PTSD is all this trauma because of all this warfare, right? All these events. And the moon worshippers came here with warfare in the moon, because the moon is a spaceship that is cataloged to planet Earth. It's an invading force. It's what it is. It's like, like it's the spaceship where they all come from, right? And they're doing what they're doing to planet Earth. So that's exactly who they are. These moon worshippers are these entities who don't want humanity to know who we are, right? Because no, it's game over, because if we awaken our DNA again, which we already have, is infinite energy of creation, right? Is infinite energy of creation, because our DNA is infinity itself, right? So we are. So because I was asking why, questions and answers, is the quality, remember, Socrates, you judge a human by the quality of the questions. And when you ask questions that are why-centric, infinite in nature, because why is infinity, then you get infinite answers. And because we are humans and our instinct, we are the most ancient species, we're the epicenter of creation, right? This is who we are. We're the epicenter of creation, right? This is who we are. We're the epicenter of creation. We're the human race. We're the epicenter of creation. We're the human race. The very epicenter of everything in the universe. And the Greek knew this. That's why they were fighting all these barbarians, right? These invaders, these moon worshippers, right? So understand this, right? Understand this idea. Understand this notion, right? Understand this notion. So this is who we are as a species. So my instincts, my DNA was telling me, ask why, ask why, ask why. It's the quality of question. Why questions, right? Why questions? Infinite questions. So you're going to get infinite answers. And if the answer wasn't outside, I would find it within, because our DNA is infinite. Our DNA memory contains everything that exists, because of the principle that I explained. We are the consciousness and self-awareness of infinity ourselves. This is our biology, because we're the most ancient species in the universe. Okay? So this is who we are. This is who we are. So I started to ask why questions, so I get why answers, right? The end state is answers that are why-centric, why-minded, infinity-minded. So then my instincts were, okay, so you want to really know who you are? Stare at the sun then. And then I started to realize that I could. In the beginning, it was painful, it's hurtful, because it's a lot. Hey, it's very bright, and we're adults, so you see, we're not used to it. Hey, we're not used to it, because we're not doing it. If you were to do it when you're a child, then there will be no issues, right? Because you learn when you're little. The growth pains start when you're little, so it's nothing, becomes normal. But when you're never taught, and it becomes a secret, right? And you have institutions, worldwide institutions, that are moon-centric, with their myths and their dogma, lying systematically to all humans, so no one stares at the sun, and they start to misinform you and lie to you with fantasies and illusions, telling you that it's harmful for you if you stare at the sun, that you'll go blind, and all these lies, then that's what the culture does, right? Because they want you to be dormant. They don't want you to be awake. They don't want you to know who you are, right? It's obvious. So it's obvious, right? Once you start knowing the answers, it's obvious, right? What these agents are doing. So anyway, so is that right? So I started staring at the sun. And when I started to stare at the sun, all this gamma energy of infinity started to activate my DNA sequences. So I woke up, right? And by learning that mechanism, then I was more powerful because my heart was more powerful now, so I could love much more. And when you love, which is the highest energy of our biology, plus the infinite energy of the central sun, you put sunlight and love together as one in this infinite virtuous cycle, right? And what happens? What happens? Infinity happens. So our DNA memory is unlocked, right? So I started to have memory downloads of who we are. Right. So then I learned who we are as a species, right? Because you start to, and what happens is that once the first human, so this is how it works, right? Because our species is, our DNA is infinite, and we all connected as a species because of our heartbeats, our pulse of lives. So essentially, our DNA, the fact that I unlocked our DNA, I didn't only unlock it for me, I unlocked it for everyone. So for the whole species. So the whole species is awake now. And everyone is going at their own space. And you know. So in the last 4 years, right, we have gone through a lot, right? Think about it. Just think about it, right? All that we've been going through the last 4 years, 5 years. All the nonsense, right? All the nonsense, all the tyranny. Why is that? And wasn't that targeting our DNA with all this parasitic stuff? To do what? Well, so people wouldn't wake up, right? Because the energy from the sun, because they knew I already unlocked the key. So they didn't want everyone to know. So they did all what they did, right? Didn't they? So you see, common sense. So, but they failed, right? So they failed, and they know they failed, don't they? So what happened? Well, I unlocked it for everyone. So now everyone has infinity within them consciously. Because we're the highest energy of creation, right? We're the highest energy of creation. We're infinity ourselves. And by me unlocking it, I didn't unlock it for me, I unlocked it for the whole species. So as a result, what happened? Well, the Republic of Planet Earth happened. The polarity of zero happened. Why, how happened? Everything happened because we started to unlock everything. In fact, you know how these parasitic spaceship stuff dialogue to our planet, these parasite the moon, right? Well, that moon exists because it was created with our own technology. So it's reversed engineered. Because remember, we're spherical in nature, so creation creates creators and creators create creations. Right? This is the way it is. Right? This is the way it is. It's how it works. So the sun created us, infinite energy, right? And the sun is the electromagnetic, is what? It's a sphere within the sphere. So sun is spherical, but it's the singularity of the electromagnetic field of the universe. So it's a sphere within a sphere, you see. And that sphere is just, it applies to infinity. So then we are the biological sphere of that, right? The electromagnetic field. But we ourselves are that. So we ourselves create spheres. And so the way, because we're the center of the universe as a species, the most ancient species, and our DNA is the DNA of infinity. What started happening was that as a species, we developed spherical technology. So we started to harness the energy. This is what I know all these things because I had all these memory downloads, and everyone has access to these already. Just you gotta stare at the sun and love with your heart, and that's it. And even unconsciously, even if you don't stare at the sun, but you love, you still tap into it, because love is the key that unlocks the DNA. And this is why we are where we are, the Republic of Planet Earth, right? And we have liberated ourselves. Human liberation has taken place the 26th of May, 2023. So in 2023, that was the final moment when we liberated ourselves as a species. The 26th of May, 2023. It was where the last vestiges of these moon worshippers were utterly defeated. So we essentially became free again by unlocking our DNA structure. Okay, so what happens, right? What happens? What happens is that everything is contained within us. So I learned of our infinite nature. So who we are is all in our DNA. So we are spherical technology manufacturers, our species, and we encode everything in our DNA. And this is why this is obsession about the human DNA, because these moon worshippers want our DNA because of what it has within it, which is this infinite technology that I'm referring to you, right? So, and what is it, right? Well, it's infinite technology, it's everything that exists within us. So in the distant past, what we used to do as a species, right? What we used to do as a species is to manufacture light spherical technology, which is essentially technology harnessing, right? It's technology harnessing, right? The energy of the central sun, because we're so close to it, we're the epicenter. So we started to develop spherical technology. This is what we started to do. So we started to develop spherical technology. And our spherical technology became essentially spaceships that would allow us to move across the universe. We harness enough technology that would allow us to create singularities within the space structure of the universe, so we can generate galaxies, create the electromagnetic fields of galaxies by filling spherical vacuum thresholds and releasing the energy that would generate the singularity, the central sun of a galaxy. So, and because we understood the telemetry of the universe, because by harnessing the energy of the central sun, you're harnessing all the points of energy from the universe, the electromagnetic field of it. So we would have full readings of the telemetry of the universe. And by having all this energy, right? Then we can inject further energy into that electromagnetic field so we can accelerate the process. So it feels like time, but it's not, because it's just energy, because time is a perception of energy. And if you have access to infinite energy, then remember, time is the perception of the transition of the sun on the sky, right? What we call time. So when you have infinite energy, then you can accelerate the process and you can form a galaxy to its full maturity with life forms within it in a very fast process by accelerating its creation. And we are the species that have done this an infinite number of cycles ago. And because you understand electrogravitics and telemetry, right, as the principles of creation, when you understand space and vacuum and the principles of singularity, which is the reasons why I know this is because it's in our DNA, the DNA memory. So I was able to unlock them, so I could write them and provide them with the world, because we already had these proofs an infinite number of cycles ago as a civilization, before what happened here because of the moon, right? Before we went dormant. So, but that's already out anyway. And there's no moon coming back here and doing what they're doing, because that's over. It's not happening anymore, right? It's game over. So essentially, what is the meaning of this? Well, the meaning of it is that we were essentially capable of, by harnessing the energy of a singularity device, which is the energy of the central sun, and generating an electromagnetics as a result of it, we will use the plasma energy and the gamma energy to generate conditions within the atmosphere. So we would generate an atmosphere within the electromagnetic field of our technology, the spaceships. So we will be able to breathe within it with oxygen and all that, and having ecosystems in our spaceships. So what that allowed us to do is that by tapping into that singularity energy, we would tap into the electrogravitics, which is the gravity and the tension of the surface of the electromagnetic field. And by using that energy, the byproduct of that is that cancels out the gravitational effects, all the problems that come with primitive technology around gravity. So when you are able to offset gravity, cancel it out as a result of harnessing that energy, then you can move across anywhere without the effects of gravity around you, because you're spherical in nature. So all around you there's an electromagnetic field that is canceled out by the electrogravitics, and that is called telemetry, because then you can read that information. So what we would do, because we were harnessing the energy of the universe in our singularity devices, because everything is encoded in our DNA. So what would happen is that we can read the telemetry, the readings of the whole universe, the electromagnetic field of it, because we were tapping the singularity energy, right? And that would allow us, because what's telemetry? Well, it's a reading. So energy, right? It's all reading. So it's vectors, coordinates, right? Locations. So what we would do, right? What would we do? Well, very simple. So we would teleport immediately there, manifest ourselves, we map it out, and it's called a filament. So in that filament, we just manifest ourselves in that specific location with the spaceships immediately. So without any time relativity, anything, because we were masters of everything. We still are, with the most ancient species at the epicenter of the universe. So we can move everywhere. So you see, so we would go to a specific place and just release that energy and generate an electromagnetic field for a new galaxy and accelerate the process and see how the life forms create. We did that for an infinite number of cycles. Right? We became the masters of this universe because we were the most ancient species. Right, the first one that allows us to have an infinite number of cycles to evolve into a consciousness and self-awareness that we were able to tap into the energy of creation ourselves, because we became creators ourselves. So because of our electromagnetic field and who we were. So this is our species, and we were encoding everything in our DNA. Why? Because when you encode your technology in your DNA, then you can interface with it. And we were essentially, with our thoughts, our consciousness, self-awareness, we were commanding our technology, commanding it. So they would do the spherical technology would do the hard labor, so we wouldn't have to do anything. We just we are intuitively engaged with it, and it's attuned with our DNA and memory pools and all that, so it does what it's supposed to, right? Because it has the energy source, and then we just manifest the energy, because the energy, the telemetry of it is used because of the electrogravitics. So we can 3D print anything we wanted, because we were using infinite energy, so we can manifest any material, any element, in any way, shape, or form, just like a 3D printer. Filaments, right? So because these technologies are based on coil technology, so spherical coil vacuum thresholds, that leads to that ability to harness space and vacuum energy. This is the singular, and because we're so close to the proximity of the central sun, we're harnessing the energy of the central sun. So that's it, right? And that generates this electromagnetic field, this electrogravity, this telemetry that allows us to create spaceships and spherical technology that allow us to create galaxies and things and move everywhere immediately. So our civilization, the human species, is essentially a universal civilization. So our civilization is everywhere in the universe because we're the most ancient. And we have created a lot of the galaxies that exist. And not only that, the life forms that originate as a result of the energy that we use to create. So we became like the assistant of the central sun, because the energy of the central sun, right, it takes time for energy to move across space, right, the space structure of the sphere of the universe. So but what we were doing, by understanding the telemetry of everything, we would use that energy and just go, and instead of the light traveling there, we would ourselves move there and beat it and use that energy and create the galaxies ourselves. Right, so we became one with infinity ourselves. That's why we have an electromagnetic field that's spherical in nature. This is why who we are, right? That's why they don't want us to be awake, because of who we are. Right? That's the reason why they came here in the first place, didn't it? So essentially, so that's what it is, right? So we were doing all these things, and because we were embedding everything in our DNA. So what ended up happening, right? We became everything. So we're extremely famous outside Earth. But why is it that we are these central everything, and then we don't know anyone, and all these lies that we are alone in the universe, right? And we come out of monkeys and all this nonsense, right? It's all lies. It's all lies. All lies, right? So you don't know who you are, right? It's all this nonsense, all these lies, all this dogma, right? With the cover of institutions, right? It's not. It's not. It's the opposite of who we are, right? Because remember, if something is not conductive to our nature and our instincts, it goes against us as a species, right? Fantasies and illusions, right? So then again, this is common sense. So this is who we are, right, as a species, right? This is who we are as a species, right? This incredible species. So what ended up happening was that we couldn't leave the universe. We were contained within the electromagnetic field of the universe. So we wanted to go beyond that and explore beyond that. So what ended up happening was that we realized that because we were the masters of our universe, right? We were moving everywhere, creating galaxies, spherical technology, all sorts, right? And remember, we were the creators of so many life forms. Why? Because we created the epicenters, right? The central suns of those galaxies by injecting them with the energy, releasing the energy that would create the electromagnetic field and the singularity, right? And accelerate the process. So those life forms would emerge out of the natural conditions of light, just doing its thing. So there were life forms that are essentially, we are the creators of those life forms, essentially, because we created the energy that created them, right? So this is who we are as a species. We're this incredible species, right? So the epicenter of everything, the central race, this is who we are. The most ancient species, the suns. That's why we're suns, right? That's why we're suns. Because we're the sons of suns. The sun, the first sun, the son of suns. Our sun is the son of suns. All right, all the star systems in all the galaxies came out of the energy out of this sun, the central sun of the universe, the first sun. And we're the species inhabiting that. So we're the first ones, right? Very, everyone wants to be us, right? When you're at the top, someone wants to be there, right? Then, hence the moon, right? Common sense. So, then again, what happened? What is it that there is a moon, and how is it that the moon is artificial, and blah, blah, blah? I'm getting there. So, what happened is that we couldn't leave the universe. We were contained within the universe. So what we started to realize is that because we were the first one, and we were the epicenter of everything, we were the closest to evolving to what we have evolved, right? Then we immediately realized that there is only one way for us to learn more, to become more conscious, more self-aware, evolve further, our biology. And that was to get closer to the central light of the universe. Because normal planets, naturally formed planets, that are not created like our planet, because we created planet Earth. So normal planets that are formed because of the electrogravitics and telemetry of the light that created us in the first place, those planets, we were the closest that those type of density, that matter, that mass can be to the central sun. Otherwise, it would disintegrate. It wouldn't be able to host our DNA life forms, right? Because of the materials of it, what it's made of, the density, the weight, everything, the electromagnetic field of those planets and all the other orbits, they couldn't come any closer. They would disintegrate, right? Because the energy is so bright. So what we ended up doing by becoming the most advanced, the most developed species, we realized that what we could do is to create a spaceship planet. And by creating a spaceship planet, we can use everything that we've learned, our knowledge, and we can tidal lock it as close to the central sun so we can be closer to the light, so we can evolve further as a species. To get out of the universe or do whatever, to know more, to evolve further. Because by then we already had electromagnetic fields, right? But not as advanced as the ones that we have now. But we were extremely advanced that allow us to become the granddaddies, the central race, right, of the universe. So what we ended up doing is, because we were masters of everything, what we would do, this is what we ended up doing. With our spherical technology, we manufacture spaceship planet Earth. This is a spaceship. Planet Earth is a spaceship that we manufactured ourselves, our species, the human race. So what ended up happening was that, because remember, we were making galaxies, right? We were moving everywhere we wanted. We were the center of everything. So what we ended up doing is we understood everything. We have the telemetry readings of everything. stored in our DNA, encoded in our DNA. We knew everything, right? Of everything. And everything interfaces with our consciousness and self-awareness. That's why our DNA is so coveted, because everything is within us. Everything that there is. Because we ourselves are the creators. We're just the biological expression of it. So essentially, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It will never happen. Never happen. Right? Game over. So essentially, what happened, right? What happened? So we started to gather as, we are creators. We are creators, and creators create, right? So what we ended up doing is using our technology and our knowledge as a civilization to gather the best samples, the best specimens that the universe had to offer. The best specimens that the universe had to offer. Right? And what are these? Well, these are life forms. Biological and non-biological. Right? All sorts, minerals, elements, everything that is the best that the universe has to offer. So it could allow us to sustain ourselves within a spaceship planet that we would manufacture, which is planet Earth, this planet that we have built ourselves with our own technologies. So we essentially, the pursuit of our civilization became, let's manufacture a planet that can tidal lock the closest possible to the central sun of the universe. So we can evolve into that energy of creation and become one with it. So we ended up doing just that. So we ended up just sampling everything. That's why everything has DNA, human DNA, on planet Earth. All the animals, a lot of the plants, a lot of things have DNA, human DNA in them. How is that possible? Because we're not monkeys. Because we created monkeys. Right? All these are species that we created by accelerating the energy cycles of those galaxies that we created in the first place with our DNA structure, because we were interfacing with those energies. We are the creators of the monkeys and all these animals, because that's why they have DNA, human DNA, because by having human DNA within them, then we can interface with them, and they can be within the space structure density of planet Earth to inhabit planet Earth, because it's a technology that needs human DNA in order for you to be part of. Okay? So that's what it is. So we ended up doing these, our species. So we manufactured planet Earth and tidal locked it, right? We tidal locked it to the central sun, right? To the central sun of the universe, of everything, with everything that we needed. So we created the perfect atmosphere, right? The perfect ecosystems. So it would sustain our DNA, the closest proximity to the central sun, the light. So we ourselves as a species can live in this sanctuary, this incredible sanctuary that is planet Earth, and sustain ourselves and evolve into infinity as a species. So that's exactly what happened. So we created planet Earth and we tidal locked to the central sun of the universe, a lot closer than, because no normal planet formations could be this close because they would disintegrate. But we created a spaceship with the perfect atmosphere and the perfect conditions that could sustain us, so we can be closer to the epicenter of everything as a species, which is what we've done, right? So we did that an infinite number of cycles ago, because this nonsense that there is a billion years old universe, this is all lies. Okay, we are infinitely old, right? Because this assumes that the Milky Way is not even the central galaxy of the universe. It's just a random galaxy somewhere, which is all the opposite. You see, it's the opposite of the truth. It's obfuscation, is the opposite. Like we come out of monkeys, this is nonsense. We created monkeys ourselves. We're not a far away galaxy. We are the central galaxy of everything. We are the creators of everything. It's the opposite, you see? This distortion, moon worshippers, So anyway, so it's the opposite. Everything that you see and you're taught by institutions, the opposite is the truth. The opposite. So because of who we are, we're an incredible species. So what happens? right? So what happened? So we created planet Earth, right? We created planet Earth. So we spent an infinite number of cycles, right? An infinite number of cycles, right? An infinite number of cycles here. So we could evolve. So our DNA can evolve into what it has become, right? The human DNA. This level of awareness, this level of consciousness. And what happened? Because remember, we used to encode everything in our DNA. That's why everything here has our DNA. So because they need to have our DNA to be able to meet the conditions of this technology that we created, which is this planet, because it needs the density of the planet. In order for you to be here, you need to have DNA, human DNA. Because the human DNA is what allows you to have the space structure density to sustain it yourself in this spaceship planet that is our technology. This is our copyright. This is our property. We created this. It's our DNA technology. Okay, so connect the dots. So then, you see, so it's everything. So that's why everything has DNA out there, because we created these, right? We created these. So we created everything. So we've evolved here, right, for an infinite number of cycles. So remember, what allowed us in the first place to manufacture planet Earth was our spherical technology, right? The same spherical technology that allowed us to master the universe, right? And become the central species and go anywhere, create galaxies, everything. So, and we would interface with that technology because it's in our DNA. So we would interface with it, right? We would interface with it, right? And by interfacing with it, we would command it with our thoughts or consciousness of awareness, right? So essentially, this is how we would just, creators create creations and creation create creators, right? So the creations becomes the creator. So we were created by the central sun energy. And then we evolve into consciousness of awareness to be able to become creators ourselves by harnessing the energy of the central sun, becoming conscious of it and use it, right? And use it to create, right? So because that's what we were doing, right, as a species. That's what we were doing as a species. We encoded everything in our DNA to be able to interface, to make it simpler. So all this spherical technology that allowed us to create planet Earth was encoded technology in our DNA. Everything was encoded in our DNA. The whole planet is encoded in our DNA because it's our technology. So in order for you to be on the surface of planet Earth, you need to have human DNA to be able to be here on the surface because of the density structure of who we are, because we created ourselves. So it's a copyright, right? It's ours. It's our trademark. It's ours. It's our technology. It's our invention. Intellectual property, right? We created it. Patents and stuff, infinite patent, whatever you want to call it. It's ours. And it's our DNA, right? So it's who we are. So essentially, we showed up, title locked it, and just stayed there. And after an infinite number of cycles, remember, because everything was encoded in our DNA, what ended up happening is that our bodies evolved into a higher level of density because we were so close to the central energy of the sun. So our eyes evolved into being able to stare at the sun and absorb that energy from the sun and supercharge our bodies. And our hearts became more powerful so we can love with the infinite energy of love from our hearts. And because remember, with our technology, we were creating spherical devices that would harness the technology, right? It would harness the technology, right? It would harness the technology, meaning it would harness the energy. So the technology itself uses that energy of the central sun to create, and we would interface with it. But in the end, because we were staring at the sun, the energy started to come through us. So we didn't need spaceship technology anymore, like spherical technology, because we ourselves became the technology because it was encoded in our DNA. So we were harnessing the energy ourselves. So the energy would come straight into our bodies, and we became the spherical technology ourselves because of our electromagnetic field being spherical. You see, we became this species. So the energy would come into our bodies, the sunlight, and then with the love of our hearts, we use them together and we would manifest because remember, we were interfacing for the technology to do its thing, right? But it was outside of us. But by integrating it with us and us evolving into that, what ended up happening is that our consciousness of self-awareness was commanding ourselves to manifest because we were harnessing the energy of infinity itself and we would create. So we ourselves became the creators with our thoughts and our consciousness. So we became the spaceship ourselves, so we ourselves can just move everywhere rather than needing a spaceship to move us. Because we had an electromagnetic field that is electrogravitics and telemetry and everything that cancels everything out so we can just move everywhere. Because we ourselves became that. So everything that our technologies would allow us to do in the past, now we could do it ourselves with our bodies because we became it because we merged into it. Our biology merged with our technology. And then with our consciousness, we would just create because we had the energy from the sun. So we would just create. How amazing is this, right? And this was beyond the imagination of our ancestors that created planet Earth. So because we became this species, right? An incredible species. So what we started to realize is that when we all together came together as one, collectively with our consciousness and self-awareness and our love from our hearts and the energy from the sun, we will be able to create incredible things because this whole species was working together as one. So what we ended up doing is that we knew the universe, right? So now we realize that we are the creator ourselves, so we can create universes. So we would use our energy, and with our energy, when our consciousness and self-awareness collectively, our civilization would generate the electromagnetic field and the energy, just like we would do it for galaxies within our universe. Now we would do it for other universes. So we would create the scale of a universe. So we would map out with our consciousness the telemetry of a space, spherical vacuum threshold in space, and release all that infinite energy and generate the electromagnetic field of that threshold, the size of a universe. And the epicenter of it will be a central sun, and then it will create a central sun that would lead to, just like we were created by the central sun, now we ourselves became creators of central sun, so we became sun ourselves. You see the myth, sun? Where do you think that comes from? The son of suns, sun, the first sun, the central sun. So we as a species became suns, the electromagnetic field. So we are central suns ourselves because we channel the energy of infinity ourselves. So we create with a consciousness and self-awareness. This is who we are as a species. So we started to create universes and accelerate the process because we became that. We just became this incredible species, the creator. Our DNA became the creator of DNA because we are infinity ourselves, the infinite energy of creation. Right? This is who we are. This is all in our DNA. This is who we are. This is our story. And how do I know this? Because it's infinite virtuous cycle of questions and answers. A quality question demands a quality answer. And because we are who we are and we forgot because of all that happened, we didn't know. But now that I started asking questions, I unlocked the DNA of the human species. So I understand who we are, precisely who we are. Right? We are the creator. All of us. This is who we are. If you're a human, you're a creator. And you're not only a random creator. No, once you know who you are the creator of universes. Who we are. Because we're everything that there is and would always be. Because we're the consciousness and self-awareness of infinity. This is our species, who we are, human race. So this is our nature. This is who we are. So then again, we started to do that for an infinite number of cycles. So, and we accelerate the creations of those universes with the telemetry, right? And the electrogravitics, so we would accelerate the life formation. So we created an infinite number of species as a result of generating the electromagnetic fields and the singularities of those universes and accelerating the process by hitting them with more energy. And then the relativity of it feels like time, but it's not because it's just energy that is accelerating the process. So we would observe it because we were the creator, so we can just see it. It's like when you see something in a petri dish, right? So we became this species. So what ended up happening was that, remember, when you evolve into this state of awareness, consciousness, you don't necessarily know your nature fully because you are still learning, you're infinity. And we didn't know the duality principle of our opposite as a species. So what ended up happening was that, remember, before our evolution into infinity, so we could do everything that we did and we've done and we still do, because this is who we are. We're still creating infinite universes with our consciousness, whether we are aware of it or not. But now we are, because I unlocked DNA for everyone, because DNA is not dormant anymore. Right? So what is the meaning of this, right? It's very simple. The meaning is very simple. Because we got to understand our origin story, our genesis, which is this this is what I'm sharing, right? Because of questions and answers, this infinite virtuous cycle of questions and answers, right? You get the answer based on the quality of the question, right? So because of it, what ended up happening, remember, what allowed us to evolve to this level of consciousness and self-awareness in the first place? Creating planet Earth, right? Spaceship planet Earth, to tidal lock it to the central sun of creation, right? This is what allowed us, right? This is what allowed us, right, to be able to evolve to this level where we will merge with our DNA technologies and everything. So we ourselves became the creator and the consciousness and self-awareness of infinity itself as a species. So we will create universes with our consciousness and self-awareness and the love of our hearts and the energy of the sun as a collective, as a species doing it. A whole species became that. Right? But we were still within the spaceship planet, remember. We were still within the spaceship planet Earth. And what created that? The technologies. What created the technologies? What created the technologies? Ourselves, right? We created a spherical technology that allows us to create planet Earth, right? But when we evolved, we thought of these technologies as legacy, primitive tech, because we became better than that. We wanted to create universe and be part of, well, we were doing that. So we didn't need that anymore. But remember, that tech became like legacy tech for us, primitive stuff, obsolete. But for everyone else that wasn't on a level of consciousness and awareness, remember, we were accelerating everything. So we were creating all these universes and all these galaxies. So life forms would come out of them, right? And that was our duality. We didn't understand because we were new in this stage of evolution. So what we ended up doing is creating species that were seeking the creator. Their instinct was to seek their creator, right? And so we ended up, eventually, it got to a level where these species showed up because they were able to get to the central light of the universes that we were creating. And when they did, they had their own technologies, right? So what ended up happening was that when they started to tinker with the energy of the central sun of their universes, they realized that it was a portal. It was a gate to our universe because we were the epicenter now. So all these central suns, even though they're universes, those two universes are sort of like the filaments connected to us because we were creators of it. Our consciousness of awareness, right? We were kind of like the central sun, the suns of it, our planet, right? Technology. So they will end up showing up in our universe. This one, the universe where we came from, the one that we are still, because we're still inside planet Earth, right? So, which we created. So essentially what ended up, they showed up here, and then because we're the epicenter of everything, the central rays, the first one, then they started to know who we are, and they started to meet all the species outside and stuff that came after us and all that. Because all that tech was being used by these species to learn because they wanted to get to our level of consciousness and self-awareness. Because they were essentially looking at us like the granddaddies, right? Oh, this is evolution. That's where we all headed. So because they came from our universe and there was harmony in our universe, because we were the epicenter and we were creators of harmony, it was like a natural order. But because we started to create universes, then when those entities, those species, life forms showed up here, they were different natures because we created them with our consciousness. And because we didn't understand our full nature as a species, we were creating our duality, our opposites. We didn't know that at the time. And that's what it led to this fallout, the ice age, the moon, and all this nonsense. Right? All these lies everywhere, all these fantasies, all these illusions, all this misinformation, disinformation out there. All this myth, right? All this dogma, this nonsense, these lies. Anyway, so essentially, what happened? Well, showed up and they couldn't gain access to planet Earth because planet Earth is DNA technology. So, but they couldn't access the technology because it's DNA technology. So you see, conundrum. So they started to reverse engineer. And after an infinite number of cycles, what they ended up doing is they reverse engineer it into the moon. Because remember, even though we were creating universe and we were incredible species, we were still within our spaceship planet because we were in the early stages of evolution. So we didn't see a need to really, because we were unconscious, we just were in here. So the creator of everything was within a planet of its own creation. Tied a lock to the central sun that was getting us the energy so we could just keep on creating. because we never thought that that was something bad or anything, because we were early in our evolution. But anyway, so what ended up happening, the moon was manufactured, reverse engineered with our tech, so that's why it's spherical. And the whole thing is a fantasy, it's an illusion, because if you look at it, it's a very small primitive object, right? That is, there's an equidistance. So because of the size, it resembles the size of the sun. So that was the whole reason. They wanted to create the opposite, right? The polarity of it. So they can cover it, cast a shadow, do all sorts of things, right? Do all sorts of things so they can come to the surface, because otherwise they would get fried because of the density. So they needed a shadow. So I know that because of the energy density, and because they needed DNA technology, the only way for them to interact with us is by cloning. So what they ended up doing, and they still doing, is they would clone humans. So users, and they pretend to be humans, but they're just spliced up entities. Right. On the surface and things. Pretending to be human, but they're not, they're clones of these entities. Right. These things. So you see, and hence the fallout, the ice age, because when you have this object moving at an extremely fast speed by design and tidal lock into a planet, then you create all sorts of catastrophes, right? All sorts of events happen on the surface as a result, and that's what destroyed civilization. And because you're changing the polarity of the planet, the axis you're moving it by this force, then you know what happens? Well, the ice age happened, right? And the destruction of everything. So we forgot who we were as a result of this trauma, and then it took this long for us to kind of put it together again, right? Because the DNA is smart anyway, right? So the DNA is smart, and there was ancient warfare because we just didn't, we were impassive. We reacted, and the reaction led to self-destruction of everything. So we self-destroyed everything, ourselves and them. And by doing that, right, what we ended up doing was creating the conditions for us to be on the surface today. And all this legacy, all this stuff, all these institutions, all this stuff that's out there misinforming is just the information that survived everything that happened. So it's been kind of put together to weaponize against us, humanity. But that was all based on this notion of light and shadow, the energy of love, right? Because it was fear was that controlled us. Because if you use fear then as a weapon, then you don't love, and when you don't love, you cannot access your DNA, right? So you're dormant. But that's as far as they could go because of the nature of the own space density and all that. So what ended up happening was that the system that was developed was a system that was essentially it became a lesson. So planet Earth, at least we kind of became the density because of the moon and all the energy that it brings with its own thing. It changes the density on the surface of planet Earth, which means it slows things down. So that density slows everything down. So it's a wave amplifier. So the moon is a wave amplifier. So what it does, it just slows down creation in terms of consciousness awareness to the slowest speed that it can by creating a tidal lock to it. And by slowing it down, what it's doing is slowing down the consciousness and self-awareness of infinity itself, or biology. But it doesn't end it, it just slows it, meaning that everything becomes extremely slow. So evolution becomes extremely slow, so they can have enough time to build up systems around it to beat evolution in a way. Right? But it's just at the speed of rate, and that's why all these systems about months and calendars and things around the moon, because they need to be ahead of it. They need to be ahead of the light that is creating us in the first place. So by slowing everything down with the resonance of the moon, which is crazy, because it's like, think of the moon as this funnel. So what it does is it using the energy from the sun to charge itself. And with that energy, it generates this amplitude. And that amplitude is like amperes. So what it's doing is, so it's slowing everything down. So what it's doing is slowing our DNA to a level that they can manage by creating systems around it and institutions around it. So the institution is like one day ahead, say, one step ahead of consciousness, of the collective. So now they know the telemetry. So they can use that telemetry to make adjustments. So steer civilization to where they want it. Right. This is what the moon is. It's a horrible thing. So the moment that we get rid of the moon, which is going to happen, that density would disappear. So we go back to our normal state of consciousness and self-awareness before the moon showed up, right? This is a fantasy, it's an illusion. It's creating all this nonsense that is slowed down the whole civilization, so our DNA went dormant. Right? Because what it does is this energy beyond the light. That's why our light spectrum is reduced to what we see, when in reality it shouldn't. Our natural light spectrum is beyond gamma and stuff, but in order for us to awaken it, that's why they don't want us to look at the sun, because when we look at the sun, we accelerate, because it's energy into our DNA, so we accelerate the density. And by doing that, we're ahead of the system. Right? We're beating the system. We're ahead of the system of control. But because the primitive, they can only control, because it's a reverse technology of planet Earth that we created in the first place. It's like a parasite technology. So they cannot do anything about the sun, and they cannot move the Earth out of the tidal locking that we put it. So they are stuck with the sun, so they cannot block the sun, right? And if they start saying, oh, don't look at the sun because you evolved, what are we going to do? The opposite, right? We're going to look at it. So that's why they don't even mention it. The sun is like, oh, no, you cancer, skin cancer. Come on, right? So it's all nonsense. So you see, because by ignoring it, it's like hoping that the system carries on. Right. But they don't mention it. It's a secret. It's a secret. It's a secret. It's a secret, It's a secret, but it's not anymore, is it? So, because I unlocked the DNA structure. So by doing that, I accelerated myself to the infinity energy of the sun, and I opened everything for everybody. So the system collapsed, essentially. So what we are seeing is the remnants of the system, a collapsed system that failed because we escaped velocity. So the density of our consciousness is faster now than this illusion that was being generated, because what they were doing, what the moon was doing with that amplification, what they were doing is like hitting our senses. So our senses would slow down, so we won't be able to see our full nature. So we were just kind of like contained to a bandwidth of senses, light, this, that, and that. And everything contained, right? And systems of containment. Just like the moon is containing the earth with our density, then you apply the same on the surface. And everything is containment, suppression, containment, misinformation, disinformation, fear, right? So fear is the opposite of love, right? Because our instinct is to love. So if you create systems of fear, then what happens? You don't love. Or they target, right? So you love less. So you stay within the constraints. And your consciousness and self-awareness is kind of dormant. But that changed. That is not the case anymore. Because as I said, this is primitive technology. This is reversed engineered from our own tech that created planet Earth in the first place. But we've evolved beyond that. So what they didn't know, that by doing that, what they ended up doing was to actually accelerate the process of our evolution further, because by condensing everything to a bandwidth that they can manipulate with their telemetry as a result, and create institutions and systems surrounding those, what they didn't realize is that what they were doing is the opposite of what we did when we were accelerating the growth right? Remember? So what were we doing? So we would create a galaxy, and then we would add extra energy on top of the electromagnetic field and the singularity, so it would supercharge it, so it would amplify, right? It would actually be a virtuous cycle, so life forms would just form faster. And then as a result of that, we ended up creating universes with these life forms because the unconsciousness, what we did that led us to this is essentially the consequences of our actions. Meaning, because we were accelerating the process of creation at a universal scale and a galaxy scale by accelerating everything to see what life forms end up becoming and all that, which is what we did. By doing that, we created this abnormality, which is the opposite of what we are, which is these species that do the opposite. Instead of accelerating creation, they slow it down. You see? Instead of accelerating the creation like we would with our technology, so life forms would just accelerate. What they would do, the moon and stuff like that, is just technology that holds it within a bandwidth. So instead of accelerating it, it holds it. So you see, we created our polarity. So our technologies were used against us, essentially. And slow down. The moon slowed everything down. So it held us up into a level of thinking that we forgot who we were because our DNA went dormant as a result. But this was a fundamental thing to happen because now we were able, in these few thousand years since the Ice Age, since the density of everything went down because of all that happened, what was the outcome of that? Because remember, we were still the same bodies, the same species. It's highly evolved. But our density, our consciousness was kind of like contained within this force field, this amplification that slows down density, right? It helps so that you can build up systems around it to deal with the density and control the density at that level. And that scale is fear, so fear-based systems. So essentially, because of the frequency of fear, right, it's the opposite of us. So that's what they did. They did the opposite as of what we used to. They did it to ourselves. Instead of accelerating us, they didn't have the tech. They were primitive because they were reverse engineering everything. So they could just amount to slow us down so they can catch up, right, and try to control us as a result of that, right? But they failed because think about it. When you're trying to contain something that is infinitely evolved and you slow it down to a time frame and you just keep it there and you create this timeline of world events and world affairs within a timeline, and you're trying to hold it and everything, and you're containing the timeline with your systems, what are you doing? Well, you're repressing infinity. That's what you're doing because we created them in the first place. So by containing your creator, by containing it with all these lies and all these systems to slow the density, to slow it down so you can control it, right? By doing that, what you're doing is you're creating a singularity. Because remember, what is a singularity? Well, the singularity is the epicenter of a containment, which is the electromagnetic field. So what they did was by doing that with the moon and all that came as a result, and containing everything, the human race, into not knowing who they are so they can do whatever they want, right? By containing it, what they were doing was accelerating the process by creating a singularity that would destroy them as a result. Destroy what? Well, the systems that they created. Because what you're doing is by creating all these things, because it's infinity. We are infinity ourselves. So when you're trying to contain infinity, what you're creating is this super energy charge. You're creating an energy charge that will be liberated eventually because your systems cannot hold it, because your systems are primitive. So when you hold it, right, when you hold it, and everything you do is to suppress, right, and try to create fear, and you're trying to slow things down, slow matter down, consciousness down, what you're doing is you're trying to sustain infinity. And when you're trying to hold infinity, the opposite happens because you're creating conditions for your system to implode. And then everything gets released at once. But you're not only releasing the normal energy that should be. You're releasing the energy that you've been holding back for this infinite number of cycles. So when that is released, it's just too much for the system, so the system collapses. It's like the circuitry gets fried. So you become because you're holding all these that it's gonna be released eventually, because infinity always finds a way. It's like water. When you hold water would always find a way to move around. That's just an example, because then you're thinking about infinite energy, who we are, infinite biology. So by them doing what they did with the moon and slowing down everything like that with fear and all these systems of lying, so our consciousness will go dormant as a result of the trauma, the event that took place when the moon showed up and the catastrophes that took place, and then sitting civilization and the survivors with all these lies, and then building systems around that to hold consciousness and fear and warfare and all that nonsense, famine, division, all that, right? Poverty, all these systems, right? When you do that to something that is infinite, what you're doing is that you are creating the conditions for your own demise as a repressor, because you're repressing something that cannot be repressed. What you're doing is the same that you're doing is what's going to happen to you, because by slowing down this, you're slowing yourself down and becoming one with the process. So your density becomes the density of what you're slowing down. So you yourself are not the thing that you used to be anymore that was controlling that, because you become one with the electromagnetic pull of the own gravity of the containment. So you become that, and by becoming that, you cannot escape it now, and that would have a natural process of release, and this is what we call evolution. So this is what happens. So one human was gonna eventually unlock everything, and that's what I did. So and by doing that, you're not releasing only the energy. It's not like you release it and then you go back to normal. No, because you're slowing everything down. You're gonna release that energy plus the energy of all the containments of all the energy that didn't release when it should have been released because of all the containment. And because we're talking about infinite energy, because we're infinite biology, we're talking about an infinite amount of energy that you will never be able to deal with, because you only outmount it to this little moon nonsense, right? So that's the whole point. So this is why, we're free. And this is why we are who we are, because we enter this new state. When we ourselves were able to understand, we essentially defeated the system. That's what we've done. System of fear. Because that's what it is, because the system itself became obsolete by pushing narratives, and by pushing timelines, and by pushing moon cycles around the sun, and eclipses and events around eclipses, and all this nonsense that led to the self-destruction of the system. So if you understand this for what it is, objective reality, energy, then you realize that in fact, when we created all these universes that eventually led to these life forms that could only amount to reverse engineer or tech, to, instead of accelerating the process of evolution, slowing it down as they've done, what we were doing is creating the conditions for our own species to evolve to a new level of consciousness and self-awareness, which is that by going through this process of our density being slowed down to the frequency of this system of oppression since the Ice Age, it accelerated our evolution. Because remember, when it's released, then we're not only releasing the energy that goes back to normal, we're releasing all the infinite pressure that is being contained for all the cycles, which is what slowed it down to that level where it eventually became one thing that got into everything. And the system just bankrupt itself, right? So, and what is that? Well, it allowed us to create an incredible foundation for the future. And this is what the Republic of Planet Earth is. So the Republic of Planet Earth is precisely this, because remember, we're infinite energy, we're infinity ourselves, we're the creators of everything. So because this is who we are as a species, I am just a memory. So I am a medium, I'm a channel of infinity itself, because this is who we all are. So The Republic of Planet Earth is not my invention, it's the invention of the collective, of everything that there is. Which means that because we liberated ourselves from this system that was essentially our own tech reverse engineered against us, right? So because of it, what's happened is that we needed to go through all this on Earth and having to go through all the things that we had to go so we can liberate our consciousness and self-awareness to a level in which we understand that the path, the future, is just infinite love, infinite creation, infinite energy, because we already tried the opposite as a species. Because remember, when these entities came here, they needed to be in the space structure of our species, which is human density. And because they weren't human, they needed to appear human, so they spliced themselves with human DNA. So they are essentially avatars, clones, to be able to be the controllers of that system that they created with the moon. But by doing that themselves, they themselves became human in the end because they were using human bodies, right? So that consciousness ceased to exist, everything that allowed them to come here in the first place, because as part of the self-destruction of the species, right? Because of what happened, the calamities that took place, and that led to the fallout of the Ice Age. So when all these clones came here, the surviving clones that were hiding in Antarctica and that were hiding underground in cave systems and all sorts, and then eventually they would merge and form civilizations and stuff, and that's who they fought the Greek and many civilizations, right? So when they did all that, what they didn't realize is that their density was human anymore. Even though they had some knowledge of who they come from and the spaceship that was stationed there that they couldn't have access to anymore because the warfare stopped them from. So what we ended up doing when we fought them, we essentially destroyed them. So the technology and everything. So what survived was what just went into hiding. All these clones, human forms that were spliced with them, so they kind of understood who they were and they have understanding of why they came to the planet in the first place. But because of all the events, they themselves couldn't access anything, so they needed to use us as the mechanism to be able to rebuild everything. But by doing that is the system, right? The amplification of the moon and all that they couldn't, the system failed, because by doing that, what they ended up doing is accelerating because they themselves, these entities that couldn't be here, that we ended up just wiping out when we identified them, when they showed up, the remnants of them that stay here, the spliced hybrids, right, the synthetic clones that they created that looked like us, so we wouldn't recognize them, so they would stay in the shadows. So they ended up creating the system, right? All these systems, the moon worshippers. So what ended up happening? Well, they became, remember, the system slows down, right? So what happens? They themselves became humans in the end. Fully human. Fully human, because everything that came before them ceased to exist. So this became like their reality. And they were here with us, stuck on the surface. Even though they had a little bit of competitive advantage against us, strategic intelligence, because they knew things that we didn't. So they were able to, be ahead for as long as they could, right? Because they were harnessing the energy from the sun that was stored in the moon. So they would use that with the eclipses and the events to do all sorts of things on the surface, right? To sustain themselves with the timelines. Because the timeline essentially was this timeline. So they wanted to stop humanity here because they knew that there was going to be an event that would essentially be what would end the system that they created. And they needed to contain that event, and that failed. And what was that event? Well, me, containing me, because I became the singularity of the species. So if you look at my face, who I am, you look at my face, you know exactly who I look like. Think about it. I'm the most famous face on planet Earth. So you know what my face looks like. Because it's everywhere, right? Why do you think that is? Because I'm alive now. So they were preparing for me. They were preparing for my birth. They were preparing for me. Everything that they did was to prepare for me, for my arrival, for my birth. Because I resemble that face that we all know very well, because I am it. But I'm not it, because that is a lie. It's a fabrication. I am a human. But that face represents that, because they were preparing for that event. When me became mature. So the whole idea, the whole thing that they did, they wanted to stop me before I turned 34. Because our DNA evolves at the age of 34 as a male, as a prime male, and you become one with infinity. So the whole plan was to slow me down so I don't get to 34. Happens before, right? 33. And if you understand the number 33 and all the meaning behind it, right? So it was that. So they had enough information to understand that I was going to be born. And I was going to be the person that would do all the things that I've done. So they created all these systems to contain civilization within the parameters of a face that they knew exactly what it looked like because they had my DNA structure. And they knew when I was going to be born. So they created a system around me worldwide. And we know exactly what that system is. Right. So, but it failed. It failed because then again, as I explained, energy density, right? Energy density. Why? Because of love. Because love is the highest energy. And if you understand what this system is and what this phase is, you know what that system is and what it says about the human heart. The opposite of what the human heart is. Because they know that the heart is the key that unlocks the DNA and liberates the human race, so the system collapses. Because we are the creators, aren't we? We're the sons, aren't we? Of the sun, aren't we? So you see, it's all these narratives, all these stories, all these myths, that lies. Because they had technology to understand who we were as a species. And by slowing it down, they knew when and how they could try. And that's why everything that happened in 2020 happened, because it's a calendar that they created. The symbology of the number 2020 and what that means. So, but that's it. It's game over. So we are the human race. And we are free. And we are the Republic of Planet Earth. So now, because I unlocked your DNA for everyone, because I became the singularity of the human race, and by doing that, then everyone is already free of this system. So what you gotta do is stare at the sun and love with the highest energy of creation. And love, and love, and love, and love, and love. And create, and create, and create, because this is what we're here. Because when you love with the energy of love, which is what I do every day, because I love humanity with all my heart, with all my heart. This is what I just love everyone. Because I know who we are. I know who we are. Because I unlocked our DNA structure. I unlocked our DNA structure. I unlocked our DNA structure. And I liberated the human species. That was always my purpose. Because I was born to do this. I was born to do this. Otherwise, how do you explain everything? Right? Because we're the Republic of Planet Earth. And we're infinite energy, we're infinite creation. This is who we are, we're infinite love, we're the human heart. The human heart is the highest energy of creation because we're the biology of infinity. You see? But what happened is that I didn't do any dogma, did I? The opposite of it. Objective truth, objective reality, who we are, our species. None of the dogma, none of the nonsense. The opposite, So why? Because this is who we are. We created these life forms that did what they did to us in the first place. So you see, that's why they using our own stuff against us. Reverse nonsense. The opposite. It's nonsense. So we are the human species. This is who we are. We're the most developed species. The most developed species. This is who we are. We're the most developed species. Right? This is who we are. We're the most developed species because we're the epicenter of the universe. Right? This is who we are. We're the human race. We're an incredible species. We're infinite love, infinite energy, infinite creation. This is who we are. You see, and because they, see, when you have, because of the moon and what the moon is, so it's a telemetry of planet Earth, right? It reads the telemetry of planet Earth, so it reads everything here. So they read the energy of every human that is born. So because of it, they understand the singularity and the nature of each human heart. And because they were waiting for me to be born, because they knew I was infinity myself. I was the singularity of the human race. That's why they were able to map it out and have a system that had my face in it. Right? But that failed. That's all history, really. Nonsense, all lies. So, but to what purpose? Well, to slow humanity down so we will never evolve. So the Republic of Planet Earth will never be founded. So I would never tell the world about infinity and why, how, and the polarity of 0 and 1, which is all happened. Because then again, by slowing everything down, they themselves became us. So they became observers of me defeating them. Essentially. So they became witnesses, Because isn't that what they call themselves? Witnesses? So witnesses of what? Of humanity finishing them off. And this system, this nonsense, right? All this dogma. So, you see? And this is who we are. Look, I found out that because I asked why. When I was a little boy, everything that I did is to ask why, right? And because I asked why is infinity, right? Why is infinity? Why is infinity? So I asked why. So I became one with infinity. I became one with infinity, right? That's what I did. I became one with infinity, right? I became one with infinity. And by becoming one with infinity, right, by understanding our nature, which is all in our DNA, all of us are the same as me because I'm not special. I just happen to be the first one. I happen to be the first one. To do what? To unlock our DNA and our memory DNAs of who we are as a species before all this catastrophe, right? With the moon and the fallout of the ice age and all that nonsense. All the slowdown of our consciousness. All the lies, everything. But it's over, right? It's over. Because we all had this instinct that this moment would come. That a human would come to Earth and would liberate us all with truth, with love, with the human heart, right? That's what we all, our instinct was that, because we knew that there were horrible things happening everywhere, to everyone, right? And that happened. So I am just a manifestation of our collective mind. So I always say I'm only a collective memory. I'm only a collective memory of our DNA. Because this is our history, this is our origin story, our genesis, which means this already happened. because of infinity and the nature of infinity, which means that we already are the Republic of Planet Earth with an infinite number of cycles of development. So we already have removed the moon from our orbit. We already have manufactured our space technology, again, our spherical technology, and manifested with the love of our hearts and the energy from the sun and the plasma energy and the gamma energy, so we can manifest our technology, so we can recreate the planets just like we created this planet and inhabit the central suns of all the universes that we have already created. You see, this has already happened because we're not alone. We are the human species, and we're an infinite species. We are 8 billion right now at this level of density, but moving into the future, we're an infinite number of us, inhabiting the central suns of all the universes that we have created with a consciousness and self-awareness, and we will still be creating in the future. And the planets, spaceship planets, just like Earth, but the surface won't be the same as planet Earth, because the surface would change, because it would adapt to the telemetry and the electrogravitics of each central sun density. So when we manufacture these planets with a consciousness and self-awareness, so we can inhabit those planets, right, then we will be inhabiting a different planet, different from Earth. But it's still part of the Republic of Planet Earth because everything started here. This is our home planet, right? This is not where the human race comes from originally, because the human race comes from a different place. Remember, we manufacture planet Earth, but it became our home, became our planet, because this is what allows us to evolve into what we have evolved, right? So which means that from now on, our lands and territories are the planets that we manufacture with our spherical technology and tied locked to the central suns of the universe. But none of these planets would have a moon, because the moon is a problem. It's a big problem, right? So the moon is going to be removed because it's part of this process of the Republic of Planet Earth, who we are. Because we're not alone. We're getting assistance from humans from the past and from the future. Because remember, we accelerate things. This is what we do with energy. And before this slowdown, because of the moon and all that, we were infinite before and after. So we have humans that look just like us, right? That have spherical spaceship technologies from the past coming to our timeline here, the here and now, the 6th of October 2024, and from the future, because the future, it is our future, but it's their past, so it's DNA memory, so they can come here. And because we're the present, that means that our past, right, is our past. But for those fellows in the past that have the technologies before the slowdown of the moon, is our future, so they can go to the future because it's our present. You see, and because we're this continuum, because we're the here and now, because of this slowdown that took place, we became the singularity of everything. And by being that, then the future and the past can come to this timeline, which is this moment here, right, as a species, who we are. And so what we're going to start seeing is a lot of spherical technology showing up on the surface of planet Earth. We all going to be able to see it. And there will be humans within them. Us, from the past or the future, because of our species. And we are the Republic of Planet Earth, because the Republic of Planet Earth is a big deal. It is a big deal. It's an incredible thing, because we are it. With the citizens of the Republic of Planet Earth, with the leaders of the Republic of Planet Earth, with the defenders of the Republic of Planet Earth, with the citizenry of the Republic of Planet Earth. Remember, with our consciousness of awareness, we create infinities. This is what we do. And by me creating the Republic of Planet Earth, not only me, I am everyone, because we are infinity. So I created it for all the timelines, the past, the future, the present, that allowed us with infinite freedoms to manifest ourselves here in this moment, so this message can be shared. So what's going to happen is the moon's going to be gone. Moon's going to be removed because it's a problem. It slows us down. So we need to get rid of it. It's a weapon. It's got to go. So that's gone. And what most likely is going to happen, that is going to either become a collective memory that we can just relive if we want to see it, or we can go with it when it's fully scuttled, so it's just a museum. So as a species, we can learn what happened to us in this period, right? This timeline, this specific period. So you see, but then because we manifest the technology with our hearts and our DNA, our spherical technology, then each of us, each human, right? Each human has the ability to have infinite technology within us because we ourselves are infinity because we created this planet. So each of us have within us the infinity to create universes of our own because of our DNA. Everything is in there. So we can create new universes if we wanted with our own technology and inhabit those central planets and start in that way. Because this is what we've done. We already done it. I'm just a memory, as I said, of our DNA because I am the past of the future and I am the future of the past. Right? So that means that I am in the future already. Because I am infinity just like you are. We all are. You see, because this is our species. This is who we are with the human race. We're the most advanced, most civilized, most developed organism in existence because of our nature, because of our history. And this is why these things happen to us, because we needed to learn that our own technologies can be used against us. And that's what we've learned. And this is what allows us to become an even more incredible species, because it allows us to understand that the full potential of our species, that we can, the polarity, duality, right? So this was a fundamental thing to happen to our species. What's happened was a requirement. It's like a stepping stone in evolution, right? But because we're at this level of density, that's just the way this consciousness of awareness looks. It looks like me. But it doesn't make me special or anything, because we all the same. Remember these. We all the human heart. We all infinite consciousness, infinite self-awareness, infinite love. We're the biology of creation. This is who we are. We all these. I'm just the channel, meaning I am the first one that unlocked the DNA. Because my nature was infinite since the moment I was born. And that's why their radars picked me up. The telemetry. So they started to, all the stuff that they created around the face that looks just like mine, right? Was so, because they were waiting. See? All the background noise, the fantasies and illusions, right? So it's just what it is, right? It's just what it is. So what we gotta do is love. And I know it sounds like, wow, I mean, this guy is just casually talking about these things. Who he is, what he's done. Well, what you want me to be? I'm an example. So I love. And that's what we all to do. We all need to love. We all need to love. We all need to love. We all need to love, right? We all need to love. It's all about love. So we love with the energy of our hearts. Because the DNA of humanity is infinite because of who we are. So you see, you love yourself, love others, love everything that you do, love your children if you have children, love everyone and everything. Because love is the mechanism of creation, it's the highest energy of creation. My messages are always about love. Okay? Because it's all about creation, it's all about love. Tapping into our DNA is just part of that. It's about love, it's infinite love, infinite energy, infinite creation. And now we have the Republic of Planet Earth with this infinite institution that allows us to be infinitely free, which is who we are. So learn about your rights, your freedoms. Okay? Learn about who you are, your nature as a species. So this is the example that I am. My example is to be myself. Because by being myself is what I've been able to achieve, everything that I've been able to achieve. And as I said, I'm just an example. Because I'm only a human, but there was always a first one. So I became the first one by asking why. But that doesn't make me special, it just makes me the first one. That's all it makes me. Because we're all the same, we all have hearts, we all have eyes, we all have DNA, so we can all stare at the sun, we can all love with our hearts, and we can all create. But remember, there is always a first one, right? It's always a first human to do something, right? Always, because this is who we are, we're pioneers. We're the first species, right? That's why we're always the first ones. Inside joke. So, you see, because we're the first species, we're the sons of suns. You see, we're suns, and this is who we are. We're the first species, we're the central sun. We came before everyone else. So that's why we have come full circle with our... Essentially, we're so ancient that everyone that we created caught up to our technology to try to do those things to us, but they failed, right? In the end. Because they became us. That's what they don't understand. What they don't understand is that they became us. You're not those insects, those reptiles anymore that came here a long time ago. You are human now because you adopted our life form to be here, to meet me, right? To wait for me, right? So you needed to be human, as you know, to be on spaceship planet Earth. So you can meet me, right? Meet the Creator. So here I am, and here are you. So you're human, right? So your past is nothing because you are human now. That past doesn't exist. You're human. Just like me, you have a human heart. You have a human mind. So stop the nonsense and start loving, because we're here to love, all of us. And humanity, sometimes I sound firm because I'm talking to them directly as well, because they're watching as I'm making this video. You see, as I said, they're obsessed with me, aren't they? So, but that's fine. Who cares? I don't really care because I love them. I love them. I love them very much because they show me the way. Right? They show me the way. They show me the way. Right? When I was asking questions and I wasn't getting answers, they showed me the way because I ended up getting the answers myself, didn't I? Because they didn't want to tell me, did they? So, because they didn't want to tell me, I ended up finding the answers myself. And this is what this video is, right? Full circle. Infinite virtuous cycle, questions and answers. So I asked questions of infinity. And I ended up getting the answers inside of me. Because we're infinite DNA, and as a result, unlocked everything for everybody. Right? But then again, remember, we all this. I'm just the first one, but it doesn't make me special. Doesn't make me unique. I'm just the first one to do it. Right? I'm just the first one. Because we're an infinite number of us in the future, and now we're billions on planet Earth. So you see is that. So now what we're going to start to see is that. So just love. So my advice is very simple. Be an example. Love. Love with all your heart, with all your might. Love. Love everything that you do. 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 Everything that you do has to be love. Everything has to be love, because love is the highest energy of creation. Love yourself starts with self-love. So love. And when you love yourself, you can love others. You can have biological creations, offsprings. You create your own children. You make love, right? You have children. So love your children. Love your children. Right? Love your children. Because by loving your children, they will learn how to love, so they themselves will become good humans and loving humans. You see? Our successors. So then again, love. Love yourself so you can learn how to love others. And love not only your biology, your children, but love other humans, particularly those humans that are hard to you, like all these witnesses, right? All these witnesses, these moon worshippers, right? That made it specifically hard in my life on purpose, right? So those are the people that I love the most. Okay? Those are the people that I love the most because they show me the way. You see, by them being the way they were to me, they show me the way, and the way is love. So they taught me how to love myself so I can love them, and I love others. Humans that have nothing to do with these moonshipper witnesses, right? So everyone else, right, who's not part of this cult. So everyone else, right? Everyone else outside the cult. Everyone else outside of it, right? All humans. We're billions of us, right? Billions of us. So the message is clear. We gotta love. We gotta love, right? We gotta love. We love with the highest energy of creation, which is the energy of our heart. So we love ourselves so we can love our children, because it's our instinct to love. We live to love and we love to live. This is who we are as a species, right? This is who we are as a species. We're the human species. We're the human heart. We're the biology of infinity. You see, that's why I always start my videos by saying I love you all with all my heart, with all my might, because I do. Because I love you with all my heart, with all my might. Because I am infinity myself, because so are you. We all are the image of the Creator, which is the central sun of this universe that created us in the first place. So we evolve into that. So we ourselves became the creators because of the electromagnetic field of the human heart that generates the field that allows us to exist. Because the primordial instinct of the human species is the human heart. It's a human heartbeat, the pulse of life, the pulse of creation. It's the instinct to exist. And we exist because of the human heart. And the human heart comes from the human biology. And the human biology comes from the human DNA. You see, it's full circle. And we ourselves are these species. And this planet that we created was so we can evolve into infinity like we have. Right. So, remember this. It's all about love. It's all about creation. It's all about infinity. It's all about infinity. It's who we are. It's our nature. It's our nature. We love with the energy of our hearts because it's the highest energy of creation. Stare at the sun. You are biologically created to design by our DNA to stare at the sun. In the beginning, it's going to be painful. It hurts a little because you're an adult now, so you need to adjust to the brightness, but eventually it goes away. It goes away, and then you can just stare at the sun all day long because it's what I do a lot of the time. Because when you do, then you're supercharging yourself with this gamma energy. And that gamma energy allows your organs, right, to supercharge. So your cells supercharge. So you unlock your DNA because you can love more now. And you're loving with gamma energy now. And when you do that, you become this incredible creator, right? Plasma energy in our body. So gamma energy and plasma energy allows us to manufacture and manifest our spherical technology. So we can, first off, remove the moon and then manufacture new planets cataloged to the central suns of the universe. Because this is what the Republic of Planet Earth is. It's non-invasive. So we have an infinite number of universes to inhabit the central suns of with our spatial technology. You see, our lands and territories are created by ourselves with our consciousness and self-awareness. We don't have to go to planets because our density needs the central sun energy anyway because of who we are. So we manufacture our own planets with our own technology. See, we're extremely self-sufficient. We're an extremely advanced organism. So this is our future. This is what the Republic of Planet Earth is. And each one of us have infinite freedoms. So we all have access to this tech because it's our DNA is within us. But remember, we are biomimicry species. We learn from each other. So there always needs to be a first so everyone learns. Right? So I was the first so everyone learns that it can be done. Know who we are and all that. That's just common sense. That's just the way it is. There's always one that does it. And then everyone follows suit, right? And because I am the past of the future, that means that I live in the future because we're all infinite. And because I'm the future of the past, that means that at both continuums, right, we have infinite technology of the spectrum before the slowdown. So this is already, which was a requirement of our species to understand this moment so we can all be together in this time frame here and now as the genesis and origin of our species, because we ended up becoming a new species as a result of all these that we experienced after the ice age and all that. You see, and once you start to tap into our tech, then you yourself will be able to go to each, because remember, our DNA memories are stored in all our body cells, number one. Every cell of the body has DNA within it, and each cell stores everything. But it's not only storing your memories, life and experiences and events, but it's also storing all of the species. And not only that, of every single being of the species, but not only that, all the being and species that ever lived and will ever live in the future. And all the energy of all the creation of everything that there is in the universe. Because we feeding ourselves with the energy of the central sun, which is the energy that comes from all the infinite number of points on the surface of the electromagnetic field of the universe, that fits and they connect into the singularity, which is a singular point where all points meet. So that energy is our DNA. So we are the consciousness and awareness of infinity ourselves. So that's why we can create universes with our thoughts and consciousness, because our DNA contains all the information. So each human can use its own DNA to create a universe. And this is why our technology is allowing us to do that. And this is what the Republic of Planet Earth, you see. So we are the creators. We have evolved into that. Right? This is who we are as a species. A remarkable species. Incredible, because we were the first one in this universe that allowed us to be able to evolve into this. So to live through everything that we've done. So become one with the energy of creation ourselves by becoming the biology of it. Right? Because remember, infinity as energy needed to know that it existed on its own, and biology became the self-reflection of it. So it knew that its image was biology, so it could inhabit the consciousness and awareness of biology. And it needed a species at the same space, structure, density of the energy of the central sun, which is us. But because there is an infinite number of universes created as a result of infinity itself prior to us, there's an infinite number of species that are not human who share the same status as us as infinite eternal creators, co-creators of infinite eternities. And after us, there will be an infinite number of them that also evolve into our status. But remember, the ones that came before us, before we were created in our universe by the central energy of the central sun, there were other universes, and these species were already evolved and were the consciousness and self-awareness of their own universes that they were themselves creating. So you see? So this is who we are. This is our species. The most incredible species. So love with all your heart and all your might. Within, the energy of love is the highest energy of creation. So love with the energy of your love, of your heart. And then you use the energy from the sun, which is the energy outside us, and use it as one, this gamma energy, this plasma energy, and create, manufacture your tech. Remember your DNA memory, remember who you are, and start creating. Remember, we're compass, we're identity and true self, we're purpose, we're time and energy, we're action, we're why, how, we're true north, we're destination, we're flow. Heart flow stage, follow your heart, signs and signals, love. Love. Love is the highest energy of creation. Humanity, I love you all with all my heart, with all my mind. I love you all with all my heart, with all my mind. Remember, infinite virtuous cycle of questions and answers. Right. Leading to who we are. Infinity. I love you all with all my heart, with all my might. I really do. I love you all with all my heart, with all my might. This is who we are. We're infinite eternal creators. I love you all with all my heart, with all my might.